Hi, in this video, we're going to be practicing solving some impulse word problems. To get the best learning experience out of this kind of video, I would recommend trying out the problem on your own, seeing how far you can get, and when you get stuck somewhere, then check out the rest of the video or the parts of the video where you get stuck. And that's the best way to kind of test yourself and see if you can do these yourself. But let's go ahead and get started. So, a 1.3 kilogram soccer ball is kicked toward a goal at a velocity of 11.5 meters per second rightward. The ball bounces backward off the goalpost at a velocity of 8.45 meters per second leftward. So draw a quick picture of a before and after. So this is the ball going in, soccer ball. I'm drawing a basketball. Oops. All right. So the ball is going in, and it says it's moving rightward at 11.5 meters per second, and then it bounces back. This is the after at 8.45 meters per second. And I'm going to put negative in front of this so I can remember that I'm going the opposite direction now. It's going to the left. So this is before, and this is after. Let's look at the question. It says, determine the initial momentum of the soccer ball. So momentum is mass times velocity. If we're talking about the initial momentum, then we're going to be using the initial velocity. So initially the ball is moving at a positive 11.5 meters per second. Oh, oops. So I'm going to put 1.3 as my mass, and then a positive 11.5, and I multiply these two together. So 1.3 times 11.5, using my calculator, is 14.95. I only need two significant figures because my mass has two significant figures in it. So I can only keep the lowest number. So that's going to round up to 15. And that's positive 15 kilograms times meters per second. Final momentum, likewise, is just mass times velocity, but now it's the final velocity. And we have to remember that the key here is remembering that velocity and momentum include direction. And so we have to indicate the direction with a negative sign now because it's going the opposite way. All right, so when we put that in our calculator, we'll know our answer is going to be negative. So I'll put in 1.3 times 8.45, and then I'll round that to two sig figs again, and it's going to be negative 11, rounded up. So initial momentum was 15, final momentum is negative 11. Determine the change in momentum of the soccer ball. So you should be able to just look at these two numbers and tell what the change is, except you might get tripped up and think that it's only 4, but it's much more than 4 because it was moving at positive 15 and now it's moving at negative 11. So we have to find the difference between these two numbers. The way that we do that, anytime you want to find the difference between two values, you take the final value and you subtract the initial value, and that will give you the change. So by doing final minus initial, it ensures that we have the right positive and negative signs in the right places. So the final momentum is negative 11 minus the initial momentum, which is 15 kilograms times meters per second. So doing that, negative 11 minus 15, we're going to have a negative answer here. And that's going to be negative 26. So what's the change in momentum here for the soccer ball? It changed by negative 26 kilograms times meters per second. And that makes sense because first it had to stop. So it lost all 15 of that momentum that it had to begin with. And then it got turned around the other way by negative 11. So adding those two together and noting the direction, the change in momentum is negative 26 kilograms times meters per second. Now, the last part of this question says, determine the impulse delivered to the soccer ball. by the goalpost. Now, you may recall impulse is equal to force times time. However, we're not really given any information about force and time here. So we have to remember another thing that impulse is equal to, and impulse is equal to the change in momentum. Okay, so that's pretty easy then, because we just found the change in momentum. It's negative 26 kilograms times meters per second. So that means the impulse is also negative 26 kilograms times meters per second. Now, there is another unit that we've talked about before. Usually for impulse, we write it in terms of force and time, which is newtons times seconds. And so you can write this in two different ways. You can say Newton seconds for your unit, or you can stick with just the standard momentum units. Either one is fine. So both of these answers is the same thing, negative 26 Newton seconds or negative 26 kilograms times meters per second. So that's one problem. We'll look at some more in some future videos.